Hi, welcome to this video. In this video, I am going to take you through the process of my 100-day project this year and talk about some of the lessons that I learned while doing it. So before I started the 100-day project this year, I wanted to make sure that this was a project that I had a really good chance of being able to finish. I needed to stack the odds in my favor because let's be honest, 100 days is a lot of days to invest in sitting down and creating, when creating is often the last priority in our busy day-to-day lives. Yes, even when you have a YouTube channel about watercolors, and especially when you're a full-time mom to a 19-month-old toddler. So I started the project on April 7th, 2020, and ended it on time on July 15th without missing a single day. In this video, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about why I was able to keep up with the project this year and why it felt, for the most part, effortless. So if you don't know what a 100-day project is, or rather what the 100-day project is, it's a project that was originally started by Michael Barut, and I'm going to leave a link in the description below if you want to research the original project. So the basic idea is to choose something iterative that you will be able to complete daily for 100 days. Since this wasn't the first time I've participated in the 100-day project, I knew what I would be up against. And if I was going to do the project this year, I needed to make it sustainable, which meant each daily action was going to need to be small and manageable, something I could do every day within 30 minutes or less, or else I knew I wouldn't be able to keep up. So I came up with the idea of painting small because small paintings take less time, and I would paint it in a 2-inch by 2-inch square. The 2-inch by 2-inch size was inspired by the 2-inch by 2-inch swatches that I make with my swatch stamp. So that's really where the sizing came from. And then I thought about how I would section out my project, since when I did that back in 2017, the first time I did the 100-day project and actually finished, I was able to find a way to section that project out too that was helpful for me to be able to get through the 100 days. So the way I did it back then was I came up with themes, and it was 10 themes, and each theme would have 10 paintings. And so that's how I got through that project. So this year, I decided to divide the project into quarters. So every 25 days would be a full painting, which means each grid of squares is 5 by 5 and has 25 squares in it. So a lot of people throughout the project wanted to know the process behind how I was doing it, and it's really quite simple. So all I would do is pick a reference photo every 25 days. So I would pick a reference photo, and then I would use Adobe Illustrator to crop it down into a square format. And then from there, I would lay a grid over it in Illustrator using white lines. So I didn't actually cut up the picture, I just laid a grid over it. I would then export this image and use it as my sort of roadmap, so to say, for the next 25 days. And then I was able to carry on painting these little squares, just referencing them for the next 100 days. So as I mentioned, for the most part, it felt pretty effortless, but there were days that I just didn't feel like doing the square, but it was easy to force myself to do it anyway, just because I saw exactly what I needed to do, and I knew it would take me, less than 30 minutes, maybe about 15 or 20. So I suppose that in a sense, I succeeded at my intent of creating a sustainable and iterative project. And I learned quite a few lessons when it comes to creativity in the process of doing this project that I want to share with you. So the first thing is that breaking anything down that seems daunting into small, digestible pieces always is going to make it easier to do. I picked some quite detailed photographs, but when I painted them one square at a time, it definitely didn't seem or feel quite as hard or daunting. The second is that even in a small space, you can get lost in the details. I purposely actually wanted to try and stay loose with my watercolor painting inside of each square. I thought that I could make each square look like its own little abstract piece, but then when all of them were put together, they would form a whole picture. And as you can see, that didn't really happen. I really got focused and looked at all of the details, and I had to make an intentional effort to stop painting so detailed in many of the squares. And the third and biggest lesson is that less decision making equals less resistance to creating. I took all of the decision making out of my daily task, and I had a roadmap, as I mentioned, to what I was supposed to do each day. And that really took the resistance out of creating. And so I was able to sit down and show up and do what I wanted to do for 100 days. So that worked really well. But here's the twist. I also learned, and I think that too little decision making can equal less creativity when creating. So, like I said, even on my worst days where I was feeling so over this project, I was still able to muster up the energy to splash some paint down and complete my square. And what that tells me is that I set myself up so that I was creating without having to be very creative. So of course, there are moments in each square where I'm using my creativity to decide on colors and style, but I wonder in hindsight if I removed so many of the decisions that I also removed the opportunity to be more creative with my project. By nature, I am a box checker, and funny enough, I created a project that allowed me to check off and complete a box each day so that I could have the satisfaction of filling in all of my boxes, literally. So what am I taking away from this lesson? So I think that reducing decision fatigue when it comes to creating is not necessarily a bad thing. But for me, I'm planning to apply it in a healthier way for my own creativity. And a few examples of what that might look like, for me at least, is choosing a limited color palette before starting a piece so I don't have to decide on what colors I'm using in the moment or think too much about that. I will keep my supplies out and ready to be used. So I feel like for this project, I had a palette and all my supplies, they were there. I knew what I was doing. I didn't have to decide on what to take out in order to create. And then another way it might look is picking a topic or a subject that I want to work on, either for the month or for the week. So again, this goes back to themes for myself so that I don't have to spend time thinking or deciding what I am creating that day or that week. And then giving myself guidelines for any kind of daily practice. So if it's a sketching practice, then I will give myself some guidelines or boundaries, like the session will last only 15 minutes, or I will draw the first thing that I see when I sit down, something like that. And finally, after all those creative lessons, there is a life lesson that I think can be seen through this project. And especially this year, because I started this project a few weeks after the pandemic began, and 2020 has really been quite a year. Looking back at where it started, it reminds me of how quickly things can change in our world and in our lives, yet we still have to face things day by day. One day at a time, we do the best we can and we keep going because it all really does add up. I hope you enjoyed seeing the process behind my 100-day project this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.